So Ákos Lumnitzer is originally from Hungary. He's very passionate about his subjects that he photographs, and he specialises in bird photography, and in particular raptors. He's actually produced 2 books, or authored 2 books in the past on raptor photography. And part of his launch for one of those books, Remarkable Raptors, was actually presented here at HBOC a couple of years ago. Netra Chetty hails from South Africa, and she has over 30 years experience in photography and visual storytelling. She's held leadership roles in creative teams, both locally and abroad, and founded her own design studio in 2009. So tonight, the pair will present to us an array of photos from their trip to South Africa, which they went on last year. And so there's going to be a range of bird photos as well as some non-bird photos as well. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you for having us. I'm Netra, and it's so lovely introduced. I'm sorry, you're Louise. Louise, hi Louise. So we're going to talk to you about a trip we took to South Africa last year. As Louise mentioned, I was born there, and I came to Australia in 1992, the end of the apartheid era, with my family. Most of the places that we travel to don't allow people to get out of the vehicle due to safety reasons. A couple of weeks before we actually went to one of the parks, a tourist had been trampled to death by an elephant. Trying to get out and getting a photo with the baby elephant got between the patriarch and the juvenile, and the entire herd trampled him in front of his family. So there is they don't joke about beware dangerous game. Most of it, the time we were in a car, which most of the animals perceive as a hide, so they ignore vehicle traffic, they're used to it. So, but once you get out, you're again. This was the back of our car, the Tetris that we managed to our luggage and camera here that we took through. So I'll get straight into it. This is the overview of our trip. So you can see we left Sydney, we decided to go by Singapore because it was cheaper and there were 4 of us jumping. The first leg was 8 hours with a 4-hour layover, and then 11 hours into Johannesburg, and we chose that because we got there early in the morning and didn't waste a day. We flew almost 30,000 kilometers in 37 hours, drove over 3,500 kilometers in 17 days, photographed in 7 locations, and shot around 165,000 images.
Did you shoot?
We are still going through those, but so you can see here, this is so this is Durban, where I was born. We came in.
This and that's from the president. I was told.
So we flew into Johannesburg and went straight down to Durban. We did some family stuff around here as well. So this wasn't a pure photography trip. It was seeing a lot of relatives, meeting people that the girls hadn't met before as well, but we've left that out here. We then went on to Giant's Castle, which Ákos actually, after we met, despite me and my family living in this area and holidaying in Giant's Castle, I did not know that there was a raptor hide there. And we spent time there. Then we went up to Reed Flay Nature Reserve, then Pilanesberg National Park, which is our favorite. It's actually in the center of an extinct volcano, and then back to Johannesburg. We stayed at a place called Monte Casino, which is here. You can see this is very much in the middle of Johannesburg. We stayed there just temporarily overnight, and it's Johannesburg up here, kind of in the top middle section of South Africa. And this is a more broad view. Pretoria is up here, Johannesburg is down here. So Monte Casino is just a nice suburb. And it's designed to resemble a Tuscan village. And 9.3 million people go there annually. It's a kind of Las Vegas feel. When you're in there, it looks like you're in the middle of Tuscany, cobbled streets, little shops, casino, of course. Amazing food. And Johannesburg boasts 447 bird species, including 14 globally threatened and 5 introduced species. So we took advantage of the water pond, would you call it a pond? Around ponds and lakes just around the hotel. So this is just walking around the hotel. The birds are obviously very habituated. People are coming in and out of that area, high foot traffic, high vehicular traffic, cleaners moving around. And so we were able to get quite close to them. This is a Hardyda ibis, the bane of South African people's existence. They tend to call very early in the morning and very noisy, and
the chickens over there.
Yeah, they're
very cool birds.
You can see they've got, actually in this one, a bit of iridescence on the plumage back there, which we haven't caught in this image, but very, very similar to our second item. Oh, okay, I'm just telling you. These are some of the birds that we were able to see. There's the African wattled lapwing, again, just in the pond at the, just outside the hotel by the driveway, basically. That's close up. It's incredible colours, that big wattle. And you can see the fact that we're so close, how habituated they are to people. Is this the African one?
Oh, sorry, it's a blacksmith lapwing.
Blacksmith lapwing. Sorry, we were.
Probably the most commonly seen lapwing in South Africa that we've seen. They're like our master.
Rosy face larvae, they're really sweet. And again, it's all in an area, probably not much half the size of this room.
Yeah, the pond was tiny, but there's a bigger lake, so it's sort of the birds were going from one to the other.
This is a village beaver. I love these little guys. This is the female. They build their nests at the ends of the branches of trees, and the male will start. We've got some more pictures later on. The male will start to thread grass around the stems to build the nest. And if the female doesn't like it, she'll come and undo it and falls into it. That's the male. Yeah, and it's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking to see, especially when they're trying so hard. And then we went to just outside of Johannesburg, Monte Sisulu, and I'll hand over to Ákos. Yeah.
So Monte Sisulu Gardens is about 40 minutes from Monte Cassino. We stayed 2 nights at Monte Cassino. And my aim last time we were in 2018 was to go and see the Veros or black eagle pair that actually nest in these gardens, and they've been studying them for over 30 years. Is sort of where it is. So Johannesburg's there. Monte Cassino is probably somewhere about here, and we flew into the airport somewhere around here. And it's a big garden. It's about 300 hectares, I think, or 3,000. I think 300 hectares. There you go. I tapped him in the right hand. See, 300. And these eagles are literally so used to people being around that once you get to the location, which is on top of these cliffs, so when you walk through the gardens from the entrance, you can see the cliffs, and it's fairly high up. You'll be surprised how high it is, because we took a few breaks getting up there because we're getting old and unfit. But it's quite a spectacular view, and as you get closer, the magnitude of those rocks just really sort of hits you in the face. And there's been a lot of rain, so the waterfalls are running, and that's me on top of the major lookout, and they give you this. This is how silly people are, as you can imagine. Do not throw stones. Like literally, don't drink battery acid, that kind of stuff. So there's all these warning signs. There's even security out there because people use this as a jogging route, and people do get mugged. Seriously, people get mugged everywhere in South Africa. So we were out here watching the eagles for about 2 hours, and we had some unbelievable sights. So actually, I'll just go back quickly. And it didn't say it might change, but the nest is probably about this spot here. It's a good 150 meters away, so from an ethical perspective, if anyone's concerned, the eagles are never in danger of, abandoning the nest because you're far enough away, and the adults fly so close, so close to you, and that's like that's a bit of a crop from the image showing one of the adults on the nest, and it's a long way away. But they came eye level within 20 meters of us sometimes. You couldn't even fit the bloody things in the frame. And it's quite spectacular. And there was a guy there who regularly photographs at the side, one of the monitors, and he said that's probably one of the best mornings for years. And for us to be there at the same time, I always feel like I bring luck to the equation. So yeah, they're doing all sorts of aerial acrobatics, diving, the pied crows, which are real bastards of things, they harass the eagles. And a little while after we left South Africa, we learned that one of the eagles actually caught one of the pied crows and killed it. Yeah, that's how close they come, you can't fit them. And we were shooting with about the equivalent of 840 millimeters to 1200 millimeters focal length. So it's very long super telephoto stuff, but yeah, too much lens. After that, we walked down into the gardens, and there's a really nice pond with a photography height. So it's really good where, some places they think about photographers and they put them in a nice place, low to the water, nice perches in front, and the birds come right up. The Egyptian goose is a very beautiful goose, but it's a bit like, Pacific black dog here. Netra's photo of this pied kingfisher, and I think this is female because the male has 2 bands, or it's the other way around. So one has a single black band, the other one has 2 black bands. And they're literally coming back right in front of us and killing the fish on the perch, and then swallowing it. So if you love photography, little places like this in South Africa where they're considered photographers as well, they really make your day. You could spend days in this hike. And then we drove to Durban, which is Netra's birthplace, and I'm headed back over to Netra, and we had some amazing sort of birds in the botanic gardens as well.
So just down here, you may not see, just down here is my high school. Just cropped it up a little bit. So it's a little bit nostalgic for me. This is the race course going around here. So you can see it's on the east coast, right on the beach there. And this is where we're in the botanical gardens. It's the oldest surviving botanical garden in Africa. And it was originally created for trialing tea and coffee crops. And you'll see some of the birds that we encountered in the gardens. So this guy, Ákos, had found out through research that he hung around in the ponds, and when
The car park, the main car park.
when he drove up, I said to him, "Why are you reversing into the spot?" And he said, "Just wait, you'll see." We get off the car, turn around, and maybe 5 to 10 meters away, this guy was just sitting there in the car park. And so we got the kids out of the car and managed to take in a couple of hunting shots each.
Research, always doing research.
Tiny, how big are they?
Oh, they're tiny,
That big.
they're smaller than
Scarlet Chetty. So I'm a designer, so for me, brown birds are not really the thing. I'm chasing and twitching these things, all the sunbirds in Africa that I could. And often, while Ákos was busy with the ibis, which I'll show you later, I was chasing all these guys around the gardens with some success. This is a scarlet-chested sunbird. You can see that little iridescence on the face and the egg and under. This is a greater double-coloured sunbird. These guys are everywhere. We've seen them in a number of locations in South Africa. They're just an absolute joy to photograph.
There's a similar species, the southern double-collared, which has a slightly narrower red band on the chest, and we did see those at Drakensberg, I think.
And this is the collared sunbird as well. They're just everywhere, incredible. And these gardens particularly have a lot of bird attracting plants here, lots of nectar producing flowers. So this particular spot attracts a lot of sunbirds. We're very lucky. These are the weavers. There was an entire colony in a couple of trees, and we spent hours, literally hours, photographing. This is a male. You can see he's busy building his nest there. You can see how he's woven the little bits of grass in to make this. And the irony is that every single one of these nests look exactly the same. They're the same shape, the same narrow top, the same bulbous nest and then entry from the bottom. It is fascinating to watch. And we did.
They're literally like from me to those cupboards away, a little island. So one of the photos I really wanted to get was when I started watching the males coming in with the little strands of grass over the pond, and then at the last moment they sort of pull up and go to their little nest that they're building. And technically it's probably one of the funny way you think or not. The truth is, as a very, very skillful fly photographer, this is probably one of the most difficult shots I've ever taken. Because even though with the top of the range mirrorless camera with AR subject detection, tracking and all that fancy stuff, when it comes to a small sparrow-sized bird flying over a pond, coming out of the shade at probably 60 kilometers an hour, you've got to find the damn thing with a very narrow field of view, lock focus, track it, and then follow it all the way up. It's almost on the edge of impossible, but I think out of about 500 photos, I've got 2 acceptable ones. So I'm pretty pleased with it, and just showing the whole strand of glass coming in, putting on the brakes. Beautiful little birds, and they're literally so tame. Like some bloke came around and started feeding them bread, and I didn't know if he had a gun, so I didn't push him in the pond, so I just talked to him nicely. These things were literally like arm's reach away from you eating the bread. So, yeah, what do you do? You don't lecture people in South Africa because they're all carrying guns, and you know that in the newspaper. The red-billed firefinch, and I saw this guy in the shadows under these ferns and all this, and I followed him around for a good 10 minutes trying to get some photos, and it's one of the most beautiful little finches I've ever seen. It's collecting nesting material in the grasses there, so yeah, some beautiful birds. One of the interesting ones I've seen, which we didn't see on our previous visit is a hammercock, which is a kind of like a stalky looking bird, and I'm not much of an ornithologist, and Mick can probably attest to that. But this is a very cool bird. But one thing I didn't realise is, I'll show you where an island was. This hammercock was flying through the other side of the pond about 30 metres away at breakneck speed. Then it came right in front of me and between me and the island. And what I realised at that point, that it was actually being chased by an African goshawk. So the goshawk was trying to take out this hammercock. And I didn't even see the hawk. I just was down, what the hell's going on? One of the cooler looking birds, which I thought were really cool with these iridescent wings and these fuzzy heads with woolly necked stalks. At first they were very, very nervous. You know, even from 50 metres away, they're walking in the opposite direction, wouldn't give us any moment of their time. But I did a little bit of sneaking. I walked around them, and they settled down, you know, on their sort of knee joints, I suppose, on this joint on the ground. And I could get so close, I even managed to get some really nice portraits of them. And I really love that red eye, the detail, and the feathers and everything up close. That's what I love other than flight, is getting really close and get portraits of birds. Yes, the poor old bin chicken of South Africa, which is a sacred ibis, a slightly different species to ours, but looks exactly the same, you wouldn't know. I probably spent 20 minutes and maybe 2,500, 3,000 shots of this guy. Already killed the frog, but just to try and get something that I really like, as it's sort of flipping the frog and tenderising it before it swallowed it. And, you know, this poor thing, the tongue's out, but it's long dead, believe me. It's quite amazing. I've never seen an ibis do it, and I've seen tons of ibis in Australia, so it's a very special opportunity. So, do you want to do Tala?
Yeah.
So, just on about 45 minutes southwest of Durban is Tala Game Reserve. It's a reserve probably about this size here, and the African Raptor Centre is there. Now, I was in contact with these guys because I've been following them on Facebook for years, and they had to move from Pietermaritzburg into this Tala Game Reserve because sometimes, you know, people illegally occupy land and there's nothing that the government or the police will do. So the original centre in Pietermaritzburg was being illegally occupied by people that are homeless people, and they were forced to move because of the welfare of their raptors. And it's a good reserve. They got rhinos, zebras, ostrich, but one bird we really wanted to see was the secretary bird, which we saw not one but three. So, but it was the middle of the day, so as a photographer, it's like a really crap light. But you know, when you're there, you just take the shots anyway. The juvenile jackal buzzard in a thorny bush. And when you see the adult, which we have photos of from Drakensberg, the adult jackal buzzard is just spectacular in colours and plumage. Ostrich, the biggest bird in the world. They're native to Africa, so we didn't have to sort of shoot them or run them over. And the African jacana, which is not walking on the water, but they actually do the same as our jacanas. They're a very cool bird. But as you cannot really get out of the car, sometimes you're forced to shoot at an angle which we don't particularly like as photographers. We like to be sort of eye level as much as possible, so we tend to not shoot up much or down, usually eye level. So the Raptor Centre, we got a private tour because we knew the guys. It was really nice, lots of spotted eagle owls in there. We even got to see the pygmy falcons, which are about so big, about noisy minor sized little falcons. And these are all injured birds. They also do a little flight show with the African wood owl. Do you remember his name? Taboo, yeah. A cute little fellow. Very, very agile little owl. And this is an adult jackal buzzard. So this is about the only time you'll get a chance to take a portrait, unless you're in a hide. This bird was obviously humanised and rehabilitated, unreleasable. So then we moved to Giant's Castle, and over to you. Your favourite holiday destination?
Before I go any further, I just want to say Ákos has mentioned guns a lot, but he's literally never seen one on ground.
Yes, the guy carrying it on his leg.
The guard. So he's being a little bit dramatic, but
they can see it.
We didn't feel unsafe at any time that we were there. We didn't have any issues or run into any dangerous situations at all. Probably the only time was a slight concussion in the car. So
I went over a speed up about 80 and our younger daughter hit her head on
So Giant's Castle, as you can see, is just right here next to Lesotho, which is another country. It's landlocked by South Africa. And this is the mountain range. You can see it's actually, there's the border there, Lesotho, South Africa, and Giant's Castle camp is right here. It's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we went specifically for the endangered vultures or lavagaias. There are 200 bird species there. So they have a hide, which as you're driving up, you can see up here, this is what it looks like on the mountain. these little spots of vultures. And this is a close-up. I've taken these from some phone videos, so they're not on a proper camera, but you can see how many vultures in the air at any given time. And there's the hide. The window's on this end. And this is the view from the hide. There's a little window. They give you a packed lunch. You can go up there with a juice and a yogurt and a sandwich and a muesli bar, and you're there for the day. You drive from the camp up this, I use the word road.
There's someone there.
Hang on, I'm going to use, I use the word road very loosely. And what you do is you order up ahead of time a bucket of bones. So the lammergeiers are the only animals in the world who subsist only on bones and bone marrow. Their stomach acids are as strong as battery acid, and during winter they support feed these because they've got chicks and they are endangered. How many in Africa did you say?
So worldwide there are less than 7,000 individual bearded vultures.
But in South Africa?
And in South Africa there's less than 400 individuals. So they're persecuted, much like Australia, wedge-tailed eagles, it's not poisoning and all that sort of stuff. So they're very endangered.
They've been fed here for about 30 years.
67
years. And Ákos is here putting, you can see him there, it gives you a scale of the landscape. He's there putting some bones out on the cliff. So they know they patrol up and down this gully. They land here, but all the other birds know as well. So whoever's out for a free feed takes a crack at the buffet. The smoke here you can see is from people from neighboring Lesotho who come down, and look, we're talking a really low socioeconomic area. They don't have a lot, and they come down to try and find, and by find I mean steal whatever they can, and when they can't find anything, they often set fire to the landscape. So a lot of these photos, you'll see some smoke, you'll see burnt landscape. We, as much as we love animals, it's difficult to understand that point of view, but we just try not to judge.
We actually saw people lighting the fires from the distance.
This is the relative scale of the lammergeier, so 2.8 meters wide wingspan. That's Ákos crouching down, so they're about a meter high when done. And this is us. It was very, very cold. It was very cold. And this is myself and the two girls. Ákos is probably wearing shorts and a t-shirt. And this is him alert in the night.
When nothing's happening, there's
Really on the lookout for any birds that may be patrolling up and down the gully. Birdman on alert. And so one of the visitors at the buffet was this black-backed jackal, and we believe was female, and probably had some kids in a den that she was probably feeding. She came very close, very, very close. We were able to get some very cool portraits. How far are you? About 5?
Oh, she would have been about 10 meters out, but we went and put some more bones out with Kyra, our older daughter, and we literally walked within 20 meters of this jackal just munching on the bone. She's completely unperturbed. Beautiful animal.
And jackal buzzards come in as well.
That's Netra's photo. She's amazing.
But it's kind of easy when they're right there.
Yeah, we still
And you're in a hide. And they're so used to it, it's fun. So
almost clockwork. Every day at the same time it comes in and takes a bite.
we also saw heaps of vultures. At one point there were like 14 or 15 circling king vultures right above the hide, which we could see in the distance. Thousands of shots of these, but this is what we came for. Vultures. This is a juvenile. You can see the coloration, and in the hide there's a whole explanatory chart of how to tell what.
This is the first juvenile. They're very dark.
And almost golden in that part. It looks like their feathers are dipped in gold. This is an adult. You can tell the face is white, and actually all of the plumage on the chest is also white, but they bathe in the copper dirt and it gives them this orange color. You can see the beard, which is this black bit coming down by each eye, and they've got a red and yellow eye. It's just incredibly striking. And that's it here with the bone, a piece of bone under its talons, and you can see that eye more clearly and that color all through the chest there.
I believe that's blood in their eye, and the more excited they get, it becomes redder. So, other than waiting for the vultures to turn up, there are tons of other birds, and we forgot to put in the really cool ones, the red-winged starlings, which are just such beautiful birds, and there are 50 of them around the hide. You've got the Cape Longclaw, which is one of the local birds, very beautiful with the orange throat patch. You've got Cape Sparrow, which was down at in the camp, so you walk around the camp as well, a lot of birds. Like if you love birds and photography or even just birding, you just see so many birds that you'll never see in your life, even just walking around the campgrounds. That's the male, the female's a bit more dull. The Cape Rock Thrush, again a very beautiful local bird species. Again, comes out on the rocks, sits there like a little sentinel. The Cape White Eye, which is obviously very similar to our silver eyes. And a lot of flowering plants in the campgrounds at the time in winter. And this and sugarbirds and all the sunbirds were feeding very, very busily. The familiar chat, we were very familiar with this guy, because he's there every day. And the Gurney sugarbird. So we met in 2018, I saw this bird putting out a photo. This time we managed to get it feeding, beautiful late afternoon light. The Drakensberg prinia, it's another small sort of passerine, and very pretty bird. And you've got the Buff Street chat, male on the left, female on the right, playing into that sort of typical sexual dimorphism where the male looks very, very pretty, so the girls can all sort of fall in love with him. And then you've got the male horned woodpecker on the left and the female on the right, same thing, the male's got that beautiful red crown. And these guys are really interesting, the speckled mouse birds. We more often see them sitting on the trees or flying off in a haste than on the ground, because once they're on the trees, they're much like a needle tail. They hang on like sideways, like a swift, onto a rock ledge or onto a branch, and they don't sit upright when they're perching. So there's another species, the red-faced mouse bird, which we saw in Johannesburg umpteen million times. But these guys are common in Drakensberg. And the southern double-collared sunbird, which is a slightly narrower red strip band around the chest. And the sort of in-between breeding plumage, malachite sunbird. In full breeding plumage, these guys are just so beautiful, but we'll take it as they are. Next we have the reed flag, which is in Pretoria.
I just wanted to take a moment to retract what I said earlier about not being in dangerous situations. When we were at Drakensberg at Giant's Castle, we got mugged by a baboon.
She did all
Came into our apartment. We had a little apartment with a kitchenette. Came in, opened the sliding door, came in, jumped onto our counter, looked at all the biscuits, and shopped its way through our fruit basket. And I was frozen, and my daughter was like, "Mom, there's a baboon!" And I didn't know what to do. And in that moment, it seemed like the most appropriate way was to rush towards it, hissing like I would our cats at home and making jazz hands. So it was a bit like, and the baboon looked at me. It looked at the packet of biscuits in its hand, and I could see on its face that I just thought, I do not have time for this today. Grabbed a packet of iced buns and fled with it. And as Ákos was coming up the pathway, he said, "Netra, I can't believe some idiots fed the baboon."
curly words there.
I didn't give it, it's stolen. So he ran after it, and the only thing he had in his hand was a tube of toothpaste at the time, which he flung at the baboon, who also took no notice of him, and carried on. So that was how we got the money.
In all seriousness, baboons can be extremely dangerous, especially when you're a woman or a child, because they will attack you. Not so much men.
And they're very clever. He came back later with a friend and unlocked the door. So a reed flag. We stopped here to see a friend, and we realized that she was quite close to reed flag. You can see we've gone now from Lesotho up here to reed flag just near Sun City. And you can see I put this in because I wanted to show you how close it is to the human habitation around there. So this is not that big an area, but it's got some amazing amazing species in it. It says I've got 10 minutes to go, so yeah, we'll just get this to it. This is the landscape, so you can see it's stark, it's really dry, it was barren, and you can see these are houses right there, so it's not like in some remote part of South Africa. And I'm going to flick through these pretty quickly. African stone chat, all of these are taken from the car. Red-throated wryneck, Ákos has done the label.
That wasn't a picnic area where you actually get it.
Secretary bird. This was being harassed by a pine crow, so it was looking up, and it was just great that we were able to get that crest up like that.
And it's an immature bird, it isn't quite.
They're quite big. They're about this tall.
Yeah, they're very tall.
Yeah. We were really keen to see these. This Ákos spotted. We came round halfway thinking we were on our way home, and this woman, was having a dust bath. And she spent quite some time ruffling her feathers through there. We got thousands of shots, and we're very lucky to get this. And you can see all this plumage and the dust and around, and she was quite unperturbed by us being there. This is another nemesis bird of ours. We were not able to get amazing photos, but we took it. This is Ákos's photo.
Don't tell them that.
I snuffed it. I didn't even get one of these. I remember scrubbing around the window. We were so excited to see these. This was again in a picnic area in Replay. And these guys are one of my favorites. They just are so ridiculous looking. Like the cassowary's Wish cousin, you know, like the order cassowary from Wish, this is what you get. It's got that crest, it's got the big wattles, the red and blue. They're tiny, we call them hysterical.
No, that's different. They're real stressing birds.
They're just
very nervous.
Yeah, you open the window, they get scared, they all run across the road. You look at them on this side, they get scared, they run across the road. So they're just delightful to photograph. And this was a black-chested snake eagle that we managed to get a very, very long shot of, very far away. This is a massive crop, but I'm the one who just takes the shot. This is not yours. I'm sorry. You feel like you want to play smile with his. Okay, all right, I see how it is. I will hand over to you.
No, I need to write Johannesburg and then I'll just do the history part.
So, Johannesburg, you can see here, this is literally the extinct volcano. It's been extinct around 1.2 billion years, so it's okay, we weren't going to get thrown by any lava. But in the 80s, a big, very rich man named Sol Kerzner came and built what is the Palace of the Lost City in this crater, Sun City. And multiple hotels, more casinos, fake beach, waterfall. It's Vegas in the middle of Africa. It's where they host the Miss World and Miss Universe pageants, to give you some idea. And adjacent to it is a national park called Pilanesberg National Park. It is our absolute favorite place to photograph because it's a small area. It's the vegetation you can imagine in the volcanic crater because of the rich mineralized soil. There's lots of vegetation, there's lots of animals. The density of animals and birds in this area is very high. So we might drive 2 or 3 hours in Kruger, which is the size of Israel, and see much less than we would see here in Pilanesberg, even though it's much smaller. And it backs onto a really great hotel, so. Again, this is the landscape. You can see there's a lot more hills. It's not as stark and desolate as Replay. There is a cafe in the middle of Pilanesberg where you can get a drink and buy some souvenirs, and out the back they've got this little dam, and this is a block of salt. The salt liquor. So animals know that it's here, and often just sitting there having a little drink, they will come all through the day, especially when it's hot. They also have a resident hornbill that comes and sits with the guests while they're eating lunch, and you can get right literally within a meter of him. Pretty cool. Now, there was an argument about this last night because I said to Ákos, isn't this a black-shouldered kite? He says, Netra, come on. This is a black-winged kite. It's a completely different species. And I said, okay, well, I didn't know that. So I'll mention that tomorrow. He wants his...
So technically, there's also probably a black-shouldered kite because I looked at my Combat's app, which is on my phone, and one of the names is black-shouldered kite, but it's a different species. So African fish eagles, it's the city equivalent. Not a great photo, but we just thought I'd put it in there just for the sake of having it. Probably my favourite hornbill is the grey hornbill. This is the female because males, the tip of the bill is red. And they are very, very cool birds. They have a beautiful call. If you go on xenocanto.org, you can listen to their calls. I'm sure there are like 5,000 recordings of it from Africa. They're a cool bird. The violet-eared waxbill, so lots of little finch-like birds. Again, you just got to take the shots whichever way you're facing. You cannot get out of the car. Sometimes you've got to shoot into the sun, so you've got to try and find an angle which may work best as a photographer. It doesn't always work well, but we can usually get away with even backlit stuff. One of our favourites, the blue waxbill, another kind of finch. This time, a beautiful afternoon light for me. We would have spent probably, we spent 6 days in Pilanesberg, from dawn to dusk, literally. And it's only the last day that Netra, the girls, didn't come out with me in the afternoon because I wanted to spend as much time as possible in a small waterhole, not much bigger than this room, because it was drying up the whole park, so all the animals were coming into the waterholes. And this waterhole was still very productive. Elephants, rhinos, zebras, all the herbivorous animals were coming in, and leopards and lions, and you name it. And we go to Africa to photograph leopards and lions. They're the main things that we're going to photograph. The birds are beautiful and great, but they're sort of like a side job. But still, we got more bird photos than leopards. But I really wanted to get a photo of a leopard drinking, and it's of all the times that we were not together, I'm sitting in the car at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, leaning back. I'm exhausted. I'm having a snooze. Next thing I open my eyes, the bloody leopard drinking at the pond. So out of 25 hours at this pond with us and then a couple of days with the guy, I'm the only one who got to see that leopard. Another day we spent, the 4 of us with the guide that we hired for a couple of days, we spent 3 hours almost with the same leopard, Holisa. I'll show you a photo of it right at the end because I just cannot help it. So the magpie shrike, very common in Africa, South Africa. We saw a lot more of them in Kruger previous visit. But look at that, this massive tail, this is such an elegant looking bird. Little beater. I was just to say, one afternoon, and it's actually, I made the photo look much lighter than it was almost dark. When we got out of the gate at Manana Gate, this male white-bellied sunbird was feeding on this crane, which I think I've seen some all over in Australia. And I know nothing about cranes. I know I go for a costata, that's the only tree I know. So brown-hooded kingfisher was bathing in the pond, so we literally just sat in the car watching the pond for hours and hours and hours and hours over 6 days. And we saw lots of birds there, golden-breasted bunting, very pretty birds, very hard to photograph, they don't often come near the cars. Cape starlings with this stunning sheen and those big yellow eyes, very photogenic. The red-faced mouse bird, that's not just photos. With the technology now, with the cameras, you can do the pro capture or pre-capture and sort of buffer the images, and as soon as you press the shutter when the bird moves, it keeps all the frames that you were buffering, so you can get all these wing positions if you set your camera up right as they take off. Black-collared barbet, also a very common barbet species there, and you can see that's the edge of the mud, and they'll come to these tiny little ponds at the edges, and they dip their bills and then just drink. It's a giant kingfisher, and it's a male. This was on one of our drives in one of the areas of Glasgow. The females have a very mottled black and white sort of similar pattern on their chest, so that's how we know it's a male. About kookaburra size. So it is a giant kingfisher indeed. More of these Netra Chetty from Africa. They're the hysterical birds. And that was a beautiful yellow-billed hornbill at one of the rest stops. You can get to places within the park where you're allowed to get out of the car. The sort of fence off the car park on 2 sides, and you've still got a 20 or 30 metre gap where a lion can come in and catch up. You're just going to get out when there's no lion, or just run real fast. The pied crows, which they have a lot of problems with in Pilanesberg, harassing raptors and just being a real nuisance. As pretty as they are, they're kind of a PITA. And the grey Galway bird, or the grey Lowry, or Luri. It's one of the hardier ibis kind of equivalent annoying birds. And Netra's favourite, the lilac-breasted roller, which is a roller. A bit like our dollarbill, I guess. They've got beautiful plumage, and they're probably the more commonly seen ones in South Africa.
They are everywhere. They're on power lines, they go into, you'd think that a bird like that would be almost like a kingfisher, it's spelled. They are literally everywhere. Driving on the freeway, they're on the power lines.
In all the places that we've seen the crimson-breasted shrike during our travels, the easiest photo I got one was at the Pilanesberg Centre, where you get out of the car and they feed in the car park, and they're so used to people that you can approach it within a decent sort of distance, so you can get a good quality image of this little bird. And I just love that red plumage, it's so beautiful. And the African spoonbill, that's one of Netra's shots, and that little pond, you can see we're sitting about this high off the water. It's a little damp, so it's obviously as it's drying out, it gets shallower and shallower as we're shooting down into it. So thank you.
If anybody has any questions, happy to answer them. Thank you. I just wanted to let you know, on the end of this table, I've got 2 postcards. One's of the Malachi kingfisher that we photographed in Durban, and the other is of a Regent Barbet male that we photographed in Queensland. On the back, the information lead you to our website. We do run a Queensland bird photography intensive workshop every year at O'Reilly's, and the information's there. And we are looking at holding a trip to South Africa to the same locations next year. So if you are interested, there's no obligation. If you just drop me an email to go on the list, if we have enough interest, our travel agent who we work with, we don't do that part of it.
Not quite on the same location, it's just a slight connection.
Okay, similar location.
Landsberg and probably a private reserve more so than anything else.
But those details are still being finalised. So if you're interested in joining us, it's maximum 10 people. Drop me a line, we'll put you on the list to get more information as it becomes available. Ákos?
So this leopard here is very special. Her name is Kodisa. She's this year she's 12 years old, and in the wild the leopard will not live more than maybe 13, 14 years. And not long after we left South Africa, we learned of her two cubs that were being in a protected little cave in one of the corners of these roads up high in a sort of a copy, which is like a rocky outcrop. They were killed by lions or baboons. So she lost her cubs from last year, unfortunately. And we saw her one day for a good 3 hours. We followed her as she was stalking in Bala unsuccessfully. But yeah, it's a really tough life out there for leopards. She was also injured later last year, but she's recovered from that. However, you know, the sad thing is next time we go back, she might not be around.
Thank you again for having us here.
Thank you.